WALB.
WALB.
News Center 10.
Channel 10.
All names for the South Georgia television station that became the springboard for Gray Television, the nation's largest television news company.
A lot has changed since James H. Gray started WALB in April of 1954, but we have the same commitment to you today, whatever the weather.
Over the next 30 minutes, we're taking a look back at what's made us the station we are today.
And setting our sights on the station we'd like to become in the future.
WALB is 70 years strong.
Well, back before streaming and even before the internet, there was cable television.
When WALB first went on the air back in 1954, there weren't a lot of television sets in South Georgia, but that never stopped our longest and our most loyal viewers from getting their news and their entertainment from us.
Now let's hear from some longtime WALB viewers about what it was like in the early days of television and WALB.
There were only 2 television sets in our tiny community. The only one that we watched was directly across the field from us, probably a third of a mile. The farmer made a path, and all the neighborhood children walked over there every Saturday morning and were so excited to get to watch television.
Colonel David Schilling was stationed at Turner Air Force Base, and he was a World War II hero, and he was a neighbor 2 doors down, and he was the first one in our neighborhood to get a television set, and his son David would invite his friends over to sit and watch the children's shows.
I also remember Grady Shadburn, who was Captain Mercury. He had an afternoon cartoon show, and you know, when you're young, cartoons are a pretty important thing in your life, or at least they were in the 60s.
We were on the Captain Mercury show. That was Grady's show. Every kid got to give their name and where they were from. But what I remember so much, more than anything else, was how kind everybody was.
It's been a wonderful journey to watch WLB grow, and I'm just really proud that we live in Albany and have been fortunate enough to have this wonderful television station.
Getting stories on the air in the 60s required large teams of people and large pieces of equipment. One employee who helped capture many of WALB's monumental moments was Sam Smith. He witnessed firsthand the trials and triumphs that would change the station in South Georgia forever.
I started work in 1960. In the 60s, we covered the Albany movement. And I met Dr. Martin Luther King and several others. It was a very interesting time. Yeah, they had a Klan rally in Plains, Georgia, when Jimmy Carter was running for president. There was a crowd there, but most of them were tourists. At some point in time, somebody drove a small sports car through the reviewing stand and cut into the crowd. Nobody was seriously hurt, but several people, legs were broken, and a lot of people suffered cuts and bruises. And all I remember after that was just walking around with a camera running. The State Patrol and other police officers were on the spot right quick and surrounded the guy in the car and arrested him right there on the spot. 2 people from the production department were banging on my front door about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning and told me the station was on fire, so I got dressed and came on out here, and sure enough it was. We all decided we better start getting all this camera gear and recording gear out in case the fire came to the back of the station early Friday morning when it started. And we all figured, well, we'll be out of jobs for 2 or 3 weeks, but by Saturday we had put up a blue curtain and brought in a truck and cameras, and we did a newscast at 6 o'clock on the next day.
Well, there is something special about the number 70. It was in the 1970s that a young man from Plains, Georgia, would go on to represent the Peach State in our nation's capital.
WALB served as Jimmy Carter's hometown news source while he served as the 39th President of the United States. And like his post-presidency work, our coverage of him only increased once he returned home to Sumter County.
In 2023, the Carter Center announced that Jimmy Carter was entering hospice care at the age of 98. And since then, he's celebrated a 99th birthday and said goodbye to his lifelong love, Rosalind. We were there when Rosalind's life was celebrated at the Maranatha Baptist Church and when her family walked the streets of Plains on the way to her final resting place.
WALB News 10's Lena Allen takes us now to Plains and shares how our coverage of the Carters over the years has made people feel closer to that legendary couple.
While this town might look small, the monuments, historical sites, and even Jimmy Carter's boyhood farm have been a major part of our continued coverage of the Carters.
Hello, I'm Jimmy Carter. Welcome to the house and the farm where I spent my youth.
The influences of this area that shaped and formed his values and principles, and all, it's pretty amazing just to think, that all that was formed out here at the farm. With the media, bringing coverage to our area, we're able to tell that story even more.
Throughout the years, the Carters have taught us about love and the value of giving back. More recently, their story has brought us to tears. After Miss Rosalind passed away last year, Mr. Carter remains in hospice care. His physician tells me the former president has his good days, but still requires a lot of care. I have to ask, does former President Jimmy Carter watch WALB?
Sometimes he'll watch WALB. It's hard to believe WALB is 70 years old. WALB has been involved since the early days of his campaign for governor and then his presidency and then post-presidency. And they have been exceptionally astute at bringing the facts of what he does and what the Carter Center does to the people of Southwest Georgia.
We are very grateful to WALB and to all of you who've made it kind of your mission to make sure that Plains is seen and heard. Just knowing that y'all are right down the road, y'all are hometown people. I mean, we consider y'all our friends.
And as people here in Plains plan for Jimmy Carter's 100th birthday in October, we'll still be here, covering the Carters' unforgettable impact, not just here in South Georgia, but also around the world. Lena Allen, WALB, your hometown news source.
Now, one of my favorite memories of covering Jimmy Carter, when I first came here, he was the president, and I got to play in some of the softball games that they have for the media, and the presidents and the Secret Service played there. I got to play for the media, and that was a great thrill. Jimmy Carter would pitch for both teams.
And I understand he was a tough competitor as well.
He did not he did not like it if you didn't play well.
Okay, all right, very good. Well, the 1980s were the era of the Space Shuttle Challenger disaster, the fall of the Berlin Wall, and the AIDS crisis. But at WALB, it also represented an era of positive news and uplifting stories as legendary host Ruthie Garner stepped onto the set, taking the show Town and Country to the next level. The show became a staple in South Georgia households, starting as more of a variety show. Town and Country hosted local entertainers, talent, good news, and of course featured cooking segments. The tradition of showcasing the best of South Georgia culture continues today, bringing you the latest trends and uplifting stories in our area.
And you realize how important your station can be and is to the viewers, because you're in their home in the morning, the same time every morning or the same time every day at 12. And they look at you like your family. And that's a different kind of feeling, and I like that because they feel like they know you and they can trust you.
After Ruthie left the show, it took nearly a decade, but now it's back. And host Alicia Lewis is looking forward to bringing you future fan favorite segments.
So my goals for Town and Country are simple. I just want people to enjoy the show. I want our guests to know that they are heard. I want them to know that they matter and their stories matter, their businesses matter. I want them to know that they are a part of WALB here.
Over the last 7 decades, Southwest Georgia has seen its fair share of severe weather outbreaks, from catastrophic floods to deadly tornadoes to several devastating hurricanes. WALB has been on the air with you every step of the way. WALB News 10's Madison Foglio tells us how Southwest Georgia continues to persevere through Mother Nature's adversity.
I'll never forget that sight. It was just different because I had never seen that many deceased person at that time.
The flood of 1994 is something that South Georgia will never forget. 31 lives were lost.
A lot of times we ran into people who would just ask us, did you see my house? And, you know, I hated to have to tell them, yes, it was totally flooded.
Almost 4 years later, another flood stunned our region. And at the turn of the century, it was a Valentine's Day horror when 3 devastating tornadoes touched down in separate South Georgia counties, killing more than 19 people.
Tossing and turning and my head hitting the ground, and the house exploded with us in it.
A similar story for Jason Williams, as he recalls when an EF3 tornado went right over his house in Americus in 2007.
I was in the living room watching TV, and my wife went to the front door. She looked outside and she could see a lot of trees and stuff, limbs and stuff moving, and said, "Here it comes." I mean, I was worried about us dying.
In 2017, back-to-back storms leveled parts of Radium Springs, killing 16 people. The following year, Hurricane Michael took us off the grid.
Leaving my house and my family with the lights out and getting a call saying that you got a deceased person on Holly Road, that we need the coroner to come and now, not knowing what I was going to, trees down, it was difficult.
Each of these events bringing devastation, but also support from the community.
People from, high positions in town to, your neighbors, they pitched in. Miss Rosalind Carter contacted us and said she wanted to come and help. It really showed that, people during this time, were able to come together.
Now, Yolanda, you have helped WALB viewers and keep them informed during many of these weather events.
And is there one piece of advice, I guess, that you would give viewers when it comes to staying weather aware? And talk about the technology and how it's better now.
Well, first of all, everyone should have multiple ways to receive watches and warnings, especially at nighttime. Of course, everyone has the mobile devices, but usually when you go to bed at night, you turn those alert modes off. And in the event a warning is issued, you need to know immediately. So the NOAA weather radio alerts you, and then that way you can turn us on because we're here 24/7. We are committed to making sure that South Georgians remain safe. Also, cannot talk about weather without the legendary Gilpatrick. He was here, kept South Georgia safe for decades, and so we actually owe him, some applause as well, because he really got South Georgia through some tough times. And also the First Alert Weather Team. We have had a number of meteorologists committed to, once again, keeping South Georgians safe.
While weather emergencies are something that South Georgia has grown accustomed to over the last 70 years, a once-in-a-generation global health pandemic presented the South Georgia area with a new challenge.
And standing by right now is WALB News 10's Jamie Worsley. And Jamie, you experienced this health emergency firsthand. What was it like covering Albany when it was considered ground zero?
Jim, Carla, I remember the first time we got confirmation that COVID-19 was in our area. It came after a couple of funerals, and unfortunately, many more lives would be taken by the virus. I spoke with lone survivors from families destroyed by the disease and watched as a mobile morgue was put up in Albany. Meanwhile, drive-through testing lines stretched down the street from the Dougherty County Health Department, who were assisted by the National Guard. But I was also there when the first sign of hope arrived in town in the form of a coronavirus vaccine at Phoebe. Now, former WALB anchor Ben Roberts was also there, serving as Phoebe Putney's Director of Communications. So, Ben, I have to ask, what lessons did Phoebe learn during the pandemic?
A lot. Unfortunately, we kind of had to learn on the fly as well. As one of the first hotspots for the coronavirus in the country, there wasn't a playbook for us to follow. We kind of had to figure things out on our own and develop policies and procedures and protocols because there really weren't any in place. And we actually put all of those policies and procedures into a book called Phoebe Ready that kind of catalogs the decisions that were made when and why. So if, God forbid, something like this ever happens again, we won't have to reinvent the wheel. But I think maybe the most important lesson that I personally feel like I learned was how important it is that we have a locally controlled community hospital serving the healthcare needs of this area. Every important decision that was made about what to do, how to spend our resources, how to protect our employees, how to serve this community was made in our incident command center by people who live in and love this community. If Phoebe were a for-profit institution that was based, in a state 2,000 miles away, and people there would have had to make decisions about how to deliver care during that emergency in this community, we would not have been able to be as successful as we were, and certainly would not have been able to make the important decisions as quickly as we did.
Well, thank you to you and all the first-line responders that served our community during that time. Carla and Jim, I'm sure you guys remember what it was like back here at the news station.
That's right. Back here at WALB, we were separated, remember, by partitions. We stopped having our team meetings in person, and some even anchored a newscast from home.
We were there, but we stayed here on the air. We knew that we had people get sick. We had people in and out, but we always stayed on the air, and we always kept bringing the news to everybody, keeping everyone informed.
Well, nothing lasts 70 years without a strong foundation, and in local sports, the ones who tell the stories set the standard.
From 1954 until present day, the WALB sports look has changed, the faces have changed, but its impact in South Georgia is as strong as ever.
It will be a big night of high school basketball across southwest Georgia again tonight.
Well, then Woolly affair. It's in the bottom of the sixth inning now. Minnesota has come from behind.
WALB has been the go-to station for sports all across South Georgia for 7 decades. There is no bigger coverage than on Friday nights.
Welcome into the Locker Room Report.
We all know what this is about. High school football season is back. The Locker Room Report is the anchor of WALB sports. It's been a staple in the homes of viewers all across the region since the 70s.
WALB, I grew up watching Ducky Wall. I can remember as a 4, 5, 6, 7-year-old kid watching the highlights on Channel 10 News.
Still to this day, I have people come up to me, former players, former coaches, and tell me they remember when they were on the Locker Room Report.
What y'all been able to do for high school football. They always come out before the season and do a special on each team and give some of the kids some exposure and keeping people informed. Obviously, in South Georgia, high school football is a big thing, and so I think everybody really appreciates what y'all have done.
The Locker Room Report is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to covering South Georgia sports. WALB lives up to its name, your hometown news source, bringing you the best local and national sports moments right into your living room. From state championships to national championships.
Georgia Bulldogs are your 2023 national champions.
To world championships.
And a celebration that's not going to end anytime soon.
We've been there for it all, but the thing that makes us most proud is the bond with the community.
The reporters, for the most part, are very personable. You can talk to them. It's not always business as usual. Cover your kids. They're very interactive with our student athletes.
On WALB with
Morgan Jackson.
I think that's one of the biggest things that separate small communities from large communities.
With the sports landscape constantly shifting, WALB continues to evolve.
This year we did like a media day, and I thought that was big for the area. and where we can mirror the larger cities but still hold on to the southern touch, so to speak, that we don't get so commercial that we forget about the little people. And I think WLB Sport does a great job with that.
70 years of great moments, so many memories. There's one thing you can count on, South Georgia. We are WALB Sports.
And we're just getting started.
Many South Georgia legends have been at this very desk, delivering the news or sport in a way that connected with you, the viewer.
But no matter where life has taken them, most tell us they still carry a piece of WALB.
News happens 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It's our job to go cover it. And it's a lot of time away from family and friends. And when people come up and say thank you, that kind of helps make it all worthwhile.
I always kind of felt like WALB might be a training ground for young kids and other people that came to work here, would work here 2 or 3 years and get a good education, on-the-job education, and go on to bigger, better things.
This was my first real serious news station that I worked at. And coming into it, very afraid, but being blessed by wonderful role models and individuals who are willing to invest time and their experience in me.
I grew up watching Channel 10, and then I was fortunate enough to have a 35-year career under the tower on Stewart Avenue. So I know firsthand WALB's dedication to its viewers.
Honesty, integrity, up-to-date news. You can ask for any better station. I'm not just trying to get no brownie points, but hey, that's what keeps me up to date with what's going on WLB.
I think the station went on in 1953 or 54, and it's been a continuous part of it ever since then, giving the people of Southwest Georgia a window on the world and giving them a voice in the world when there isn't a whole lot else that does.
And we are lucky we still get to work closely with many former WALB talents, whether to get information, advice, or even a quick soundbite. Now here's a quick lineup of where some of your favorites have ended up. Robert Heydrich, now with the Governor's Office of Highway Safety. Dawn Hobby, Atlanta Realtor. And Melissa Hodges, U.S. Attorney's Office.
When a television station loses a longtime news anchor or a general manager like we did in January, employees and viewers may wonder what's next.
Lucky for all of you and for all of us here at WALB, the station has been left in very capable hands, ready to continue bringing you coverage for the next 70 years and beyond. Now, as for the new general manager of WALB, a familiar face to many of our loyal clients has stepped up to the plate, and she is WALB's first ever female general manager.
Celebrating 70 years at WALB is very exciting and quite an accomplishment. I am so excited to lead this team and this station into the future, bringing you hometown news every single day, giving you a chance to be seen and to be heard, and making sure that all of Southwest Georgia is always informed.
And while we are on the future of the station, Jim?
Well, Carla, like WALB, I too was born in 1954, and I am approaching my 70th birthday, so I will be retiring in July. Now, I've worked at WALB since shortly after graduating from the University of Georgia back in 1976, and I have been blessed to work with and to learn from a number of very talented journalists over the years and witness and cover hundreds of historic news and sports events while meeting people that I never dreamed I'd have the opportunity to meet. But my biggest satisfaction has always been being part of the South Georgia community, being of service to our viewers. I feel like whenever you turn on our newscast, you're inviting me into your home. I love South Georgia and the people here. I'm proud to call it home. My wife and I decided to raise our children here. After our retirement, my wife and I are moving to be closer to our family and our grandchildren. Over the next couple of months, you'll be seeing less and less of me. July 1st will be my last day on the air. But I know WALB will continue to serve South Georgia. Stay tuned. Now, as for who will be here at the desk right now, WALB has promoted not one but two locals to bring you the news each evening. Quinlan Parker started out behind the WALB News 10 anchor desk at just 14 years of age. He shadowed anchors over the weekend, and just one county over, Jamie Worsley grew up watching your hometown news source in Calhoun County. We can't wait to watch them keep growing behind this desk with Carla each evening.
And Mackenzie Petrie was also promoted to become your 11 p.m. anchor.
So the future is very bright here at 1709 Stewart Avenue. So we say happy anniversary, WALB, and here's to 70 more.